We are about to launch into a real-life global financial thriller. Seriously, today's explainer is pulling back the curtain on a hidden world of wealth, secrecy, and high-stakes legal drama that, honestly, most people never get to see. We're talking about how the world's elite moved their money, how anonymous sources blew the whole thing wide open, and how you, yes, you, can actually trace these secretive networks right from your own computer.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. 11.5 million. That staggering number is the exact amount of highly confidential financial and legal records leaked from just a single offshore law firm. I mean, think about the sheer volume of secrets buried in that one data drop. This wasn't just a leak, right? It was a digital earthquake that literally rattled the foundations of global finance.
And a leak of that magnitude forces us to ask one incredibly intriguing question. Where does the world's hidden wealth actually go? When billions of dollars seemingly vanish into thin air, well, they don't just evaporate. They're carefully, methodically tucked away. So put on your detective hats, because today we're following that money trail.
Part 1. The crime scene. The Panama Papers. Back in 2016, this explosive initial revelation completely blew the lid off the rogue offshore economy. It exposed a system operating entirely in the shadows. To really get the impact, you have to grasp the sheer physical scale of this unprecedented leak. We are talking about 2.6 terabytes of data. That's a massive amount of information. This came straight from the internal database of Mossack Fonseca, which at the time was the world's fourth biggest offshore law firm. And buried deep in those spreadsheets, emails, and corporate records, the details for exactly 214,488 offshore entities.
And who was in there? The data exposed this vast, interconnected network where over 140 politicians and public officials, including current and former prime ministers and kings, were sharing the exact same offshore sandbox with fraudsters, drug traffickers, billionaires, celebrities, you name it, even sports stars. It was a singular, massive system utilized by global elites and criminals alike to keep their dealings entirely secret.
But, this leak wasn't just a PR nightmare. It had very real, massive financial consequences. $1.36 billion. That is the massive amount of unpaid taxes, fines, and penalties that governments around the world have recouped as a direct result of inquiries sparked by the Panama Papers. It shows exactly why uncovering these hidden assets absolutely matters to the global economy.
Part 2. The Cat and Mouse Game. Adapting to Scrutiny.
Because the wealthy elite didn't just, throw their hands up and surrender. Not at all. Instead, we entered this relentless cat and mouse game. The world's wealthiest individuals immediately began adapting their tactics to evade this new wave of scrutiny. Uncovering offshore wealth? It's an ongoing battle. Just look at the timeline. From the offshore leaks in 2013, to the Panama Papers in 2016, then the Paradise Papers in 2017, culminating in the massive Pandora Papers leak in 2021. Each and every leak revealed new methods and new layers of complexity being used to hide money.
Now, what's really interesting here is how the strategy fundamentally shifted over time. During the Panama and Paradise Papers era, the focus was largely on your traditional foreign shell companies, set up in notoriously tax-friendly jurisdictions. But by the time the Pandora Papers hit, the wealthy had evolved. They began setting up multiple layered, highly complex trust structures in rigorous mainstream tax jurisdictions like the US and Singapore. So they moved away from just remote islands.
So let's break down how this new trust mechanism actually works, because it's a bit like a legal magic trick. Step 1, a beneficial owner takes their assets, we're talking cash, properties, shares, and places them into an offshore trust. Step 2, a third-party trustee now legally holds and manages those assets. And Step 3, because the trust is recognized as a completely separate legal arrangement governed by local secrecy laws, the ultimate owner's identity remains completely hidden from their domestic tax authorities. It is an incredibly sophisticated way to securely ring-fence wealth.
And the scale of this new method, it's breathtaking. Over 30,000 of these private foreign trusts were exposed in the Pandora Papers alone. Now let's be clear, setting up a trust is entirely legal. However, the leaks revealed that they are increasingly being used as vehicles specifically designed to hide assets and obscure ownership from investigators.
Part 3. The Courtroom Drama. Mossack Fonseca on trial.
Which brings us to the real-world consequences of all this data. Fast forward with me to April 2024 and step inside the Gil Ponce Palace of Justice in Panama for some very high-stakes courtroom drama. 8 years after the initial Panama Papers leak, 27 defendants were brought to trial. This group actually includes Jürgen Mossack and Ramon Fonseca, the very founders of the Mossack Fonseca law firm. They face money laundering charges, specifically accused of setting up shell companies to hide illicit funds stemming from Brazil's massive Lava Jato or car wash corruption scheme. Oh, and also alleged ties to a bribery scandal involving the German company Siemens.
At the very center of this legal storm are the founders themselves, who, I should note, have adamantly denied any involvement in illegal activities. Arriving at the courthouse, Jürgen Mosak actually declared to reporters, "If there is true justice, we will get out of this."
But actually prosecuting this case, it's incredibly difficult for two massive reasons. First off, Panama adopted strict new anti-money laundering laws in 2019, but the shell companies in question were incorporated way before that. Trying to prosecute historical financial maneuvers with retroactive laws is just a giant legal hurdle. Second, there's a strong precedent of acquittal. Back in 2022, Mossack and Fonseca were actually acquitted in a completely separate money laundering case. The judge ruled that the prosecution simply failed to prove the law firm knowingly tried to hide illicit funds.
Now, while the lawyers battle it all out in court, we really can't forget how this whole thing started. The data came from an anonymous whistleblower known only as John Doe. In a very rare public statement in 2022, this source, who by the way is still living in hiding today, broke their silence to urgently plead with global leaders and politicians to act immediately and close these financial loopholes.
Part 4. The Detective's Magnifying Glass. Empowering the Public.
But the thing is, you don't actually have to wait for politicians to act, because the tools to explore this hidden world are now literally at your fingertips. Over 810,000, that is the astounding number of secret offshore companies, foundations, and trusts that are now publicly searchable. Thanks to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and toolkits provided by organizations like Bellingcat, the data from 5 major leaks has been centralized for anyone to explore.
Just using the ICIJ database, you can hunt down entities in specific tax havens or even track the exact law firms and agents that are setting up these shell structures. You can generate interactive network maps that expose the hidden ties between billionaires, officers, and physical addresses. They even have a reconciliation API that lets researchers cross-match their own external data against the database to accelerate their investigations. It is a wildly powerful toolkit, a real game changer for open-source intelligence. Now, a really crucial reminder as you go off and investigate. There are actually many legitimate, perfectly legal reasons for individuals and corporations to use offshore companies and trusts. Just being included in this database does not guarantee or even imply illegal activity. As an investigator exploring this data, your job is to separate the legal, everyday business structures from the true illicit needles hidden in this massive haystack.
Which leaves us with this final, rather provocative thought to ponder today. If 11.5 million leaked files, exposed world leaders, billions of dollars recovered, and unprecedented global scrutiny couldn't completely put an end to offshore secrecy, what will? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep asking the tough questions.